The silent invasion. The night sky over Earth was calm. The stars twinkled as they always had, undisturbed, unaware of what was coming. But far above, beyond human sight, war had arrived. The Zerak Dominion had come in silence. Their warships, dark as the void, glided into orbit like hungry predators. They did not announce their arrival. There were no warnings, no broadcasts. To them, Earth was nothing more than another target, another weak planet, another civilization that would fall without a fight. The arrogance of the Zerak. Admiral Vakar stood on the command deck of the Zerak flagship, Vorthal's claw, gazing at the blue planet below. He had conquered dozens of worlds, crushed entire species, and left countless civilizations in ruins. Earth would be no different. His second-in-command, Commander Reichel, stepped forward. His voice was confident, certain of victory. "Our scans confirm it, Admiral. No planetary defenses, no orbital fleet. Earth is completely vulnerable." Vakar smirked. "They have no idea we are here." It was almost disappointing. A few laser batteries on the surface, some outdated warplanes, and a handful of satellites. That was Earth's entire defense. He had expected more. The first strike. Vakar raised his clawed hand. "Begin the attack." The Zerak fleet descended like a shadow, moving into formation. Energy disruptors targeted Earth's communication satellites, cutting the planet off from its allies. Ion cannons fired at the upper atmosphere, disabling military radars and rendering Earth's defenses blind. Troop carriers began their descent, carrying thousands of Zerak warriors, ready to claim the planet. From space, it looked like a flawless invasion. The Zerak believed victory was already theirs. But they had made a terrible mistake. They believed humanity was defenseless. They had no idea what was waiting beneath the oceans. The strange silence. On Earth, the attack should have caused chaos. There should have been sirens, panic, resistance. But instead, the planet remained silent. The Zerak commanders watched their monitors, confused. Cities were still standing. No armies had mobilized. There were no escape shuttles, no emergency broadcasts. It was as if humanity wasn't reacting at all. Commander Reichel frowned. "Something is wrong." Vakar shook his head. "They are too afraid to fight back." But deep inside, he felt a strange unease. The hidden warships. Thousands of meters beneath the ocean surface, something began to stir. A vast network of hidden military bases, buried beneath the seafloor, activated. Steel doors, covered in coral and sand for centuries, began to grind open. Massive warships, hidden beneath the deep trenches, powered up. Millions of drones, silent sentinels of Earth's hidden army, came online. For centuries, humanity had been preparing. They had always known the day would come when an enemy arrived from the stars. They had never stopped building. They had never stopped waiting. And now, the trap was set. The calm before the storm. Above the ocean, the Zerak forces descended toward the surface. Admiral Vakar leaned forward, studying the scans. No response. No movement. Victory had never come so easily. He tapped the command panel. "Prepare the main fleet. We will claim this world before sunrise." But as he spoke, his sensors blinked red. A new energy signature was emerging from the oceans. Something big. His claws tightened. "What is that?" The screen zoomed in. And then, for the first time in his career, Admiral Vakar felt fear. Beneath the seas, 1,000,000 warships were rising. The lost fleet awakens. Deep beneath the crushing weight of Earth's oceans, something stirred. For centuries, the world above had forgotten what lay below. The Zerak invaders saw a planet expose, a species unprepared, a war they had already won. They had no idea what was waiting in the abyss. Now, the time had come. The lost fleet of Earth was about to rise. The warning signs. Admiral Vakar stood frozen on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the glowing red alert flashing across his console. New energy signatures detected. But the source wasn't from space. It wasn't from the land. It was coming from below. Commander Reichel leaned forward, his reptilian face twisting in confusion. Impossible. There is nothing beneath the oceans. Vakar wasn't so sure. His gut told him something was wrong. And he was right. Beneath the waves, thousands of meters below the surface, in the darkest trenches of the ocean, a secret older than the Zurich Empire began to awaken. The steel doors of hidden underwater fortresses, long buried beneath layers of sand, rock, and coral, groaned open. Inside, the hum of powerful engines filled the deep, silent halls. Hundreds of massive warships, built in secret for a war that had never come, powered up. Energy cannons, the most advanced weapons Earth had ever created, came online. Stealth drones, hidden inside trenches for decades, activated their targeting systems. The ocean floor began to tremble. And the Zirac had no idea. The Ghost Fleet rises. Above the water, the Zirac landing craft descended, preparing to claim Earth. Vakar watched as his ships moved closer to the surface, confident in their victory. Then, the sea erupted. From the depths, colossal warships emerged, rising like titans from the deep. Walls of water crashed as Earth's hidden armada launched itself into battle. Black metal dreadnoughts, larger than any Zirac warship, broke the waves, their weapons glowing with power. Missiles roared into the sky, targeting Zirac warships before they could react. Torpedo barrages ripped through the ocean, annihilating Zirac landing ships in an instant. In one moment, the hunters became the hunted. Panic in the Zirac fleet. The command deck of Vorthal's Claw was chaos. Officers shouted in confusion. Screens flashed urgent warnings. Commander Reichel hissed, his claws gripping the console. Where did these ships come from? Our scans showed nothing. Admiral Vakar said nothing. He simply stared at the screen, his mind racing, his breath slow. They planned for us. The Zirac had never seen a trap like this. Earth's first strike. In the depths of the ocean, inside the command center of Earth's hidden fleet, Admiral Elena Carter watched the enemy's reaction. Her hands rested on the controls, her voice calm as she issued a single order. Fire. The war began. Railgun fire shattered the first wave of Zirac warships. Stealth bombers launched from hidden underwater bases, destroying key enemy vessels. Energy disruptors scrambled the Zirac fleet's navigation systems, leaving them blind. In less than 5 minutes, the Zirac had lost more ships than in their last 3 wars combined. This was not a battle. This was an execution. The Admiral's realization. Vakar watched in horror. He had thought Earth was weak. Now he understood the truth. They had never been weak. They had simply been waiting. And now, the waiting was over. The trap is sprung. Admiral Vakar had never felt fear before. He had led countless invasions, crushed hundreds of civilizations, and stood victorious over the ruins of empires. But now, as the oceans of Earth erupted with fire and steel, he felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. The nightmare begins. The Zirac fleet had come to conquer. They had come to dominate. Instead, they were being torn apart. Human warships, hidden beneath the waves for centuries, rose like ghosts from the deep. Missiles launched in perfect unison, striking enemy vessels before they could react. Energy beams, powered by fusion cores hidden under the ocean floor, carved through Zirac hulls like paper. What had been a flawless invasion only minutes ago was now a massacre. The Zirac commanders panicked. Their warships were burning. Their soldiers were dying. Their empire was losing. The desperate response. Commander Reichel shouted over the alarms, his voice filled with disbelief. This isn't possible. Earth was supposed to be defenseless. Vakar said nothing. His claws gripped the edge of the console, his mind racing. He had never seen an enemy like this. The humans were not just fighting back. They were winning. He turned sharply to his crew. "Regroup the fleet. Pull back and reorganize our attack formation." But then, boom, a shockwave ripped through space. One of their capital ships, the Zirac dreadnought Gorthal's Fang, detonated in a single, blinding explosion. Vakhar's breath caught in his throat. That ship had planet-killing weapons. That ship had never been defeated. And yet it had been erased in seconds. The human fleet moves in. Beneath the oceans, Admiral Elena Carter stood inside the command center of Earth's hidden fleet. Her voice was calm, steady. She had been waiting for this moment. Phase 2. Full attack. Above the surface, the human warships changed formation. Now, they weren't just defending Earth. They were hunting the enemy. Stealth bombers, previously undetected, launched from submerged bases and began tearing through the Zirac ranks. Torpedoes, built with alien tech salvaged from past invasions, locked onto enemy warships, striking their engines. Earth's eye-guided railguns, positioned on the ocean floor, targeted command ships with terrifying precision. Vakhar's entire fleet was being picked apart. And the worst part, they couldn't even see their enemy. The first signs of fear. On board Vorthal's Claw, the Zirac crew was no longer thinking of victory. They were thinking of survival. A terrified officer turned to Vakhar, his voice trembling. "Admiral, we need to retreat." Vakhar turned to him slowly, his eyes cold. Retreat. The Zirac did not retreat. They were conquerors, the most feared warriors in the galaxy. And yet, he looked at the battle before him. His best ships were burning. His elite fighters were dead. And his enemy. Not a single human warship had been destroyed. A chilling realization gripped his chest. This wasn't just a failed invasion. This was a slaughter. The hunter becomes the hunted. For the first time in his career, Admiral Vakhar understood what it felt like to be prey. And he knew one terrible truth. They had walked into a trap, and Earth was not letting them go. Humanity strikes back. Admiral Vakhar had always believed in the law of the strong. For centuries, the Zirac had crushed civilizations, reducing entire worlds to nothing but ruins and ash. Their philosophy was simple. The weak exist to be conquered. But now, staring at the battlefield filled with burning Zirac warships, hearing the panicked screams of his officers, watching as Earth's hidden fleet tore his invasion apart, Vakhar was forced to accept the unthinkable. The Zirac were not the strongest. Humanity was. The counterattack begins. On the ocean's surface, the tide of war had changed. The Zirac forces, once descending toward Earth in triumph, were now fleeing in chaos. Human warships, sleek and black like predators, pursued them with deadly precision. The sky was filled with explosions as Earth's missiles tore through enemy fleets. For the first time in Zirac history, they were being hunted. A desperate gamble. Commander Reichel, his face pale with fear, turned to Vakhar. "Admiral, we must retreat. We are losing too many ships." Vakhar's jaw tightened, his claws curled into fists. Retreat. The Zirac did not retreat. They destroyed. They dominated. They conquered. And yet, his fleet was falling apart. His officers were begging for survival. Vakhar closed his eyes. Then, in a slow, quiet voice, he spoke. "No, we end this now. The planet killer weapon." He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare the doomsday device." The room fell silent. Every Zirac officer froze, eyes wide with shock. The doomsday device, the Zirac's ultimate weapon, was never meant to be used. It was a bomb large enough to destroy an entire planet in seconds. If he couldn't rule Earth, he would erase it. The final battle begins. Alarms blared across Earth's hidden fleet. Admiral Elena Carter narrowed her eyes as satellite scans detected a terrifying energy signature. "They're charging a weapon." Her second-in-command paled. "It's aimed at Earth." Carter's voice was ice cold. Then we stopped them. Right now, the full force of Earth's fleet surged forward. Human warships locked onto the Zirek flagship, moving at impossible speeds. Stealth bombers engaged enemy cruisers, ripping them apart before they could react. AI-controlled drones bypassed enemy defenses, crippling their navigation systems. But time was running out. The doomsday device was charging, and if it reached full power, Earth would be gone. The UNS Titan's final mission. In the chaos of battle, one ship broke formation. The UNS Titan, Earth's most advanced warship, set a direct course for the Zirek flagship. Inside, Captain Jonathan Hayes stood on the bridge, calm despite the knowledge of what came next. His crew knew their mission. They would not survive. But if they failed, neither would Earth. The ultimate sacrifice. Inside Vorthal's claw, Admiral Vakar's eyes widened as a human warship broke through his defense lines. It was coming straight for them. Destroy it. Now, he roared. Zirek cannons fired, but the Titan was too fast. It weaved through enemy fire, engines burning white-hot, heading for the Zirek flagship at full speed. Vakar realized, too late, what was about to happen. The Titan crashed into Vorthal's claw, detonating in a massive explosion. The impact ripped through the Zirek flagship, sending fire and debris in all directions. The doomsday device, seconds away from activation, was destroyed. The Zyrek's final defeat. Silence. The Zirek fleet, leaderless and broken, had lost. Across the battlefield, their remaining ships began to flee. Earth was still standing, and humanity had just won its greatest battle. Vakar's last thought, as his ship crumbled around him, as fire consumed the greatest fleet the Zirek had ever assembled, Admiral Vakar's final thought was not of anger or revenge. It was fear. Fear of a species that should have been weak, but had proven stronger than anyone in the galaxy had ever imagined. The Zirek's desperate plan. The Zirek invasion fleet, once a symbol of unmatched power, was now in ruins. What had started as a one-sided war had turned into a massacre, and humanity was winning. Admiral Vakar, blood trickling from a wound on his brow, staggered on the bridge of his burning flagship. The doomsday device was gone. The Zirek fleet was retreating. But he was not ready to accept defeat. The last order. Commander Reichel, his face twisted in pain, turned toward Vakar. Admiral, we have to leave. Our forces are collapsing. Vakar did not reply immediately. His hands tightened into fists as he stared at the holographic display of Earth. This was supposed to be his greatest victory, the final conquest that would cement his name in history. Instead, it was his greatest humiliation. But there was one last move to play. His eyes darkened. His voice, though quiet, carried a weight of finality. Prepare the Cataclysm Protocol. Earth's worst nightmare. Reichel froze. Even the remaining Zirek officers turned in shock. The Cataclysm Protocol was a forbidden command. It was not a weapon of war. It was a weapon of extinction. Reichel swallowed hard. Admiral, if we activate it, our own forces will die too. Vakar's voice was cold as the void. I do not care. The ultimate desperation move. The Zirek fleet had lost. Their capital ships were burning. Their elite forces had been wiped out. But if Vakar could not conquer Earth, then he would make sure humanity never had the chance to rise again. The Cataclysm Protocol was simple. Every remaining Zirek warship would overload their reactor cores. Every damaged vessel would be set on a collision course for major human cities. Every failing battleship would become a bomb. The Zirek fleet would die. But so would Earth. Humanity's race against time. Inside Earth's hidden command center, Admiral Elena Carter watched in horror as Zirek ships changed course. The battle was won. But now, the Zirek weren't retreating. They were aiming for impact. Her blood ran cold. They're turning their ships into weapons. Her second-in-command, Captain Harris, shouted, "If they reach the surface, millions will die. A cold realization set in. This wasn't about winning a war anymore. This was about saving the planet. The sky burns. The first Zurich cruiser, engines roaring with a final surge of power, broke through Earth's atmosphere. The ship, 10 kilometers long, was heading straight for New York. More followed. One targeted Tokyo. Another set course for London. A fleet aimed for Washington, D.C. It was a planetary-scale suicide attack. And there were only minutes left to stop it. The impossible mission. Admiral Carter's voice rang through the command center. All fleets, intercept those ships. Humanity's warships, battered but victorious, broke formation and surged toward the descending vessels. The sky erupted in explosions as Earth's fleet fired everything they had. Railguns tore through hulls. Hypersonic missiles detonated engines. Eye-guided fighter drones swarmed enemy ships, disabling them mid-fall. But there were too many. For every Zurich warship destroyed, another slipped past. One was going to reach Earth, one too big to stop. The final gamble, the Zurich dreadnought, Vorthal's Wrath, was still intact, and it was plummeting toward Washington, D.C. No amount of missiles or railgun fire could stop it in time. Admiral Carter clenched her jaw. There was only one option left. She opened a direct communication channel to the UNS Titanus. It was Earth's largest battleship, already damaged from battle. Inside, Captain James Keller answered the call. "Titanus here. What are your orders?" Carter's voice was steady. Ramming speed. A silence followed. Then, Keller smiled grimly. "Understood. A hero's sacrifice." The Titanus, its hull scorched, its weapons depleted, fired its last thrusters and changed course, straight toward the Zurich dreadnought. Inside the ship, Keller and his crew locked onto their target. There was no escape. There was no surviving this. But there was no hesitation. As the Zurich warship descended toward Earth, the Titanus met it head-on. A flash of white-hot light, a shockwave that rippled across the sky. And when the flames faded, the Zurich warship was gone. The fall of the Zurich. Inside his burning flagship, Admiral Vacar watched as his final plan failed. His doomsday attack, his last attempt at victory, had been stopped. Earth was still standing. His warships were annihilated. His empire would never recover from this loss. The Zurich Dominion, the most feared power in the galaxy, had been defeated by the species they had mocked. And as fire consumed his command center, as alarms screamed around him, as the last of his officers abandoned ship, Admiral Vacar closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he knew what it meant to fear. The final stand. The Zurich Empire, once feared across the stars, was now dying above Earth. Their fleets, once an unstoppable wave of destruction, were now scattered wreckage floating in orbit. Their warlord, Admiral Vacar, once confident of victory, now stood on the bridge of his burning flagship, watching his empire collapse around him. Humanity had not just survived. They had won. The last orders. On Earth's surface, the battle was still not over. The remnants of the Zurich forces, stranded, desperate, broken, were still trying to inflict damage before their inevitable defeat. Admiral Elena Carter, standing inside Earth's hidden command center, surveyed the battlefield with calm, calculating eyes. Her second-in-command, Captain Harris, stepped forward. "Admiral, the Zurich ground forces are refusing to surrender." Carter's response was simple. "Then we end them." The last firefight. Across the war-torn landscapes of Earth, human soldiers clashed with the last of the Zurich invaders. But this was not a battle. It was a cleansing. Human snipers picked off Zurich commanders, leaving their troops leaderless. Drones rained fire upon enemy tanks, disabling their final defenses. Special forces teams breached alien strongholds, eliminating the last pockets of resistance. The Zurich, once so confident, were running. They had come to conquer. Now, they were begging for survival. The fall of Admiral Vacar. Above Earth, the Zirac flagship Worthel's Claw was on its last breath. Fires raged across the command deck. The ship's main reactor was failing. Admiral Vekar, his face burned and bloodied, stood before a shattered viewscreen, watching the ruins of his invasion. Everything he had built, destroyed. Everything he had planned, shattered. His empire would never recover from this. His voice, once commanding, now came out as a whisper. This was never supposed to happen. He staggered to his chair, his once proud uniform now torn and burned. For the first time in his life, he understood. Humanity had never been weak. They had simply been waiting for the right moment, a moment that had just arrived. The final transmission. As the Zirac fleet fell apart, Admiral Carter opened a transmission to the last remaining Zirac warships. Her voice was calm, controlled, absolute. You have two choices: surrender or be erased. A long silence followed. Then, one by one, Zirac ships began shutting down their weapons. The once proud empire had fallen to its knees. The last words of a broken empire. Vekar, still standing in his crumbling warship, watched as the last of his fleet surrendered. His claws shook. His vision blurred. But before the flames engulfed his bridge, before the ship exploded into nothingness, he muttered the final words that the Zirac would remember for generations. We should have feared them. Then, the flagship detonated, and the Zirac dominion was no more. Humanity's victory. The war was over. Earth stood unchallenged. But as the smoke cleared, as the last enemy warship drifted in surrender, a new question arose. What would the galaxy think now? A species once ignored had just defeated an empire. And somewhere, among the distant stars, other warlords were watching. The new galactic order. A single transmission was sent from Earth. It was broadcast to every known empire, every rival faction, every hidden enemy. The message was simple. Earth stands, and we are watching. Silence followed. And in that silence, the galaxy changed forever. The legend of Earth. The war was over. The Zirac dominion, once the terror of the stars, was now a scattered memory. Their fleet, which had blackened the skies above Earth, was now nothing but burning debris. Their warlord, Admiral Vekar, whose name once commanded fear, had spoken his last words in defeat. But Earth had not just survived. It had changed the course of history, the aftermath of victory. Across the war-ravaged cities of Earth, silence replaced the sounds of battle. Human soldiers, covered in dust and scars, lowered their weapons. They had fought for their home, and they had won. From the deepest oceans to the highest orbit, Earth stood unbroken. The fear spreads across the stars. The news of the Zirac defeat spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, in the chambers of empires, on the homeworlds of rulers who had once mocked Earth, there was only one reaction: shock. The Sarathian Empire, once considering Earth a primitive world, now held emergency meetings. If they could destroy the Zirac, what could they do to us? The ruthful warlords, long-standing rivals of the Zirac, sent spies to learn exactly how Earth had won. The Galactic Council, a gathering of the most powerful civilizations, debated Earth's place in the universe. Are they an ally, or the next great threat? For centuries, Earth had been ignored. Now, it was spoken of in whispers. The surviving Zirac's shame. The few remaining Zirac ships, the ones who had chosen to surrender instead of die, limped back to what was left of their empire. But there was no welcome home. They were traitors, failures, ghosts of a lost war. Their once proud people listened as a single recording played across their war halls, a message retrieved from Admiral Vekar's dying moments. We should have feared them. The Zirac had once been the hunters. Now they had become the hunted, a warning to the universe. As the last enemy ship left Earth's system, Admiral Elena Carter stood on the bridge of the UNS Titanus II, staring into the void. She knew the truth. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. There would be others, other warlords, other conquerors, other threats. And now, the galaxy knew what Earth was capable of. Some would come to negotiate, some would come to test their strength, and some would come to destroy. But they would all learn the same lesson. Earth was ready. The final transmission from Earth. A single message was sent. It was not filled with threats. It did not boast of victory. It did not ask for peace. It was simple, and it was terrifying. We are humanity, and we are watching. The galaxy would never be the same again.